On to our top focus here on WION. After a 5-hour-long testimony on day one, Facebook chief Mark Zuckerberg took the hot seat again as he appeared before the United States lawmakers for a second round of questioning over the Facebook data breach scandal. During the hearing, the Facebook chief was subjected to questions ranging from how and when the social networking giant came to know of the data misuse by data analytics firm Cambridge Analytica, and whether Zuckerberg immediately reached out to the CEO of Cambridge Analytica upon learning of that breach. Zuckerberg was also asked if his personal data was compromised, to which he replied in the affirmative.
Was your data included in the data sold to the malicious third parties? Your personal data?
Yes.
It was.
Just like day one, day two of the testimony witnessed apologies and assurances from the Facebook chief.
It's clear now that we didn't do enough to prevent these tools from being used for harm as well. And that goes for fake news, foreign interference in elections, and hate speech, as well as developers and data privacy. We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and that was a big mistake. It was my mistake, and I'm sorry. It's going to take some time to work through all the changes we need to make, but I'm committed to getting this right. And that includes the basic responsibility of protecting people's information, which we failed to do with Cambridge Analytica.
And among the string of assurances was also a pledge to bring down fake accounts and stop election meddling. Interestingly, the Facebook CEO declined that Facebook sells data while saying that Facebook is an idealistic and optimistic platform.
Mr. Chairman, you're right that we don't sell any data. And I would say that we do try to explain what we do as time goes on. It's a broad system. You know, every day, about 100 billion times a day, people come to one of our products, whether it's Facebook or Messenger or Instagram or WhatsApp, to put in a piece of content, whether it's a photo that they want to share or a message they want to send someone.
During the hearing, Zuckerberg also admitted that regulation of the industry was the need of the hour.
The internet is growing in importance around the world in people's lives. And I think that it is inevitable that there will need to be some regulation. So my position is not that there should be no regulation, but I also think that you have to be careful about what regulation you put in place for a lot of the reasons that you're saying.
Meanwhile, as the Facebook chief began day two of the deposition, Facebook's shares were seen trading in the green. And that testimony is continuing as we speak as well. Let's take a listen in to what's happening during day two of that hearing.
For example, we've built out specific programs in the U.S. We have 3,000 people that are focused on making sure that if we detect that someone is at risk of harming themselves, we can get them the appropriate help.
What about Russian intel agencies?
The second category of information is when there is a valid legal process served to us. In general, if a government puts something out that's overly broad, we're going to fight back on it. We view our duty as protecting people's information, but if there is valid service, especially in the U.S., we will, of course, work with law enforcement. In general, we are not in the business of providing a lot of information to the Russian government.
Do you know, is this data only from accounts located in or operated from these individual countries, or does it include Facebook's global data?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, is the data only from the accounts located in or operated from those countries in terms of Russia or anything, or does it include Facebook's global data?
Well, Congressman, in general, countries do not have jurisdiction to have any valid legal reason to request data of someone outside of their country. But
well, where is it stored? Where's the data? I mean, they have access to data only.
We don't store any data in Russia.
Okay, so it's the global data.
Yeah.
So let me just ask, you mentioned a few times that we're in an arms race with Russia, but is it one-sided if Facebook is...
All right, let's go straight across now to Kate Fisher, our correspondent, joining us from Washington, D.C. for more on this. Kate, we have been listening in very closely to the proceedings of that hearing. Very interestingly, the Facebook chief admitting during that testimony that his personal data was also compromised, and also making an assurance that fake accounts will be brought down and that election meddling will be stopped. But what remains unclear is how those measures will actually be implemented.
Indeed, that's the big question, isn't it? And that is what I think not just lawmakers are struggling with, but also the people like Mark Zuckerberg himself, the tech industry as a whole. How does it try to stop these foreign powers from meddling, from harvesting this data when the internet keeps growing and growing and technology is moving faster and faster? Yesterday, during his testimony, Mark Zuckerberg says this is something of an arms race. As quickly as his company tries to combat new ways of getting the people's data and meddling in things, then those foreign powers, those adverse agents, if you like, also are building up their skills and their technical abilities. And he says it's something of an arms race. How do we compete against that? But he says he has reassured senators yesterday and members of the House today that his company takes it very, very seriously. He is increasing his investment in security at Facebook. He says already something like 15,000 people work on security, and he intends that to be more than 20,000 by the end of this year. So he says he is doing all he can to combat this, but senators, lawmakers do believe that they need to perhaps do more by introducing legislation to also try to curb this problem. But the issue is, how do they do that? Because it seems that many of them don't really fully understand the complexities of the issue at hand, the complexities of social media, how it works technically, how big data works, how does all this data get harvested, how do algorithms work, and how are people using these in a negative way? These are all really complex issues, and they take computer scientists to work it out. And these are lawmakers who are having to try and absorb all this and find out ways of getting a handle on it. And they really want help from the tech sector to do that. The issue will be is how much help the tech sector want to give, because of course they don't want to see a huge amount of regulation, although Mark Zuckerberg has said that he acknowledges some sort of regulation is inevitable.
Absolutely. Also, when we speak about the defenses that the Facebook chief has come up with, Kate, a lot of that grilling also was about how involved he really was when it comes to actually taking up the matter with the Cambridge Analytica officials. And one of the questions also posed by the senator there was about whether Mark Zuckerberg reached out to the CEO of Cambridge Analytica soon after he got to know of the breach.
Yeah, that's right. He, after having admitted that, yes, his data was, as you mentioned, some of the data that was taken by Cambridge Analytica, he was asked about what kind of action Facebook might be taking against them. And Mark Zuckerberg said, yes, they were looking at whether they would take action against the academic who invented that app that started all of this. It was a personality test that was on Facebook. Around 270,000 people did this test. The problem was that all of their data was given over to this firm, but all of their friends' data was also easily accessible to the firm once they had taken this test, and that is what caused these millions and millions of people's data to be used by Cambridge Analytica in this way. So Mark Zuckerberg asked about what action he may be taking against them, and he said it's not just the academic and the firm Cambridge Analytica, but also potentially Cambridge University as well. He says they're exploring as to whether there is a wider problem there also. So I understand that Cambridge University is getting together a statement in response to that. And I also understand that the Chief Information Officer at Cambridge Analytica has stepped down from his position today as well.
All right. And also, Kate, very interestingly, the Facebook chief admitting that in a way he learned of some of the violations through the press. And to that pointed question, he did succumb to admitting that, yes, a lot of those violations were brought to his notice only through the media coverage.
That's right. This is one of the big questions that senators and today members of the House of Representatives have. How did you not know this was happening? And it only took a newspaper investigation and then a TV news expose to bring these problems to light and to bring them to your attention. Surely you should have a better handle on what is happening in your company and what access your users have, and you should have more scrutiny over all this. It shouldn't take a newspaper journalist, an investigative journalist, to bring this to everybody's attention. And he has acknowledged that, he has apologized for it. And once again is reiterating that they are investing more and more in security at Facebook to try to combat these actors who wanted to do malicious things with the information that Facebook has. But he says it is becoming more and more difficult because as he increases his security, so they increase their technical abilities as well. But certainly he's acknowledged that it shouldn't have taken a newspaper to outline the problems to him, and that he should have had a better handle on what was going on with his website, with his social media platform. And he says he is acknowledging that they are addressing these problems, and they do want to.
All right, we're going to leave it there for the moment. Kate, appreciate your joining us with those perspectives and inputs. Why don't we now take our viewers back to that hearing, which is still underway at Capitol Hill. Mark Zuckerberg appearing before the U.S. lawmakers on day 2 of his testimony.
Figure out a solution that's good for the American people. So I appreciate that. Secondly, I have to say that it's my understanding that yesterday Senator Shelley Moore Capito, my friend in my neighboring state of West Virginia, asked you about Facebook's plans with rural broadband, and you agreed to share that information with her at some point in time, get her up to date and up to speed. I was excited to hear that you were excited about that and passionate about it. My district is very similar to West Virginia as it borders it, and we have a lot of rural areas. Can you also agree, yes or no, to update me on that when the information is available?
Yes, Congressman. We will certainly follow up with you on this. Part of the mission of connecting everyone around the world means that everyone needs to be able to be on the internet. And unfortunately, too much of the internet infrastructure today is too expensive for the current business models of carriers to support a lot of rural communities with the quality of service that they deserve. So we are building a number of specific technologies, from planes that can beam down internet access to repeaters and mesh networks, to make it so that all these communities can be served, and we'd be happy to follow up with you on this. I
appreciate that, and we've got a lot of drone activity going on in our district, whether it's University of Virginia at WION or Virginia Tech, so we'd be happy to help out there too. Let me switch gears. You talked about trying to ferret out misinformation, and the question becomes, who decides what is misinformation? So when some of my political opponents put on the Facebook that they think Morgan Griffith is a bum, I think that's misinformation. What say you?
Congressman, without weighing in on that specific piece of content, let me outline the way that we approach fighting fake news in general. There are 3 categories of fake news that we fight. One are basically spammers. They're economic actors like the Macedonian trolls that I think we've all heard about. Basically folks who don't have an ideological goal. They're just trying to write the most sensational thing they can in order to get people to click on it so they can make money on ads. It's all economics. So the way to fight that is we make it so that they can't run our ads, they can't make money. We make it so that we can detect what they're doing and show it less in newsfeed so they can make less money. When they stop making money, they just go and do something else because they're economically inclined. The second category